So today's video, we'll be talking about that one thing that is keeping a lot of us in an area of stagnation and honestly broke. Welcome back to Faith Pays, where I am your host, Faith, and I'm here to help you to elevate your life through practical and spiritual tips to help you to live the life that you are entitled to. So today's video, we'll be talking about that one thing that is keeping a lot of us in an area of stagnation and honestly broke. I'm gonna just come out with it, broke. So if you're new here, thank you so much for watching. If you are returning, thank you so much for watching again. And as always, if you find this helpful, please share it with someone. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And this is a discussion. I know I've heard this before in church where the pastor will literally tell you, look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I'll never be broke another day of my life.
I'll never be broke in my life.
But the crazy thing is, although I said it, I wasn't really seeing it in my life. And I couldn't figure it out. So not until several years ago, and when I say several, I mean maybe 3 or 4 years ago, honestly. This was recent, okay? Where I figured out why my life wasn't aligning with, what the pastor was saying. And I had to really dig deep, because I'm like, listen, I'm confessing, I'm speaking, I'm believing, but why is it that my money is still looking funny? So in my life, I've had a propensity to just replace people. You ever heard the song? That was me. Don't think you're irreplaceable, because I will replace people, things, cats, dogs. I'll replace it quick, right? And not until, like I said, 3 or 4 years ago, that I did not realize that it was actually harming me rather than helping me. It literally took me 7 years to finish 2 years of schooling. Let me repeat that. 7 years to finish 2 years of schooling. And that's because I had a really hard time with doing this one thing. And this one thing kept me from reaching what God had for me in a quicker time. And it kept my life stagnant, and I never could figure it out. And this is the same thing that is keeping a lot of believers broke when they don't have to be. Believer or not, honestly, you can be a believer or not a believer. And this is one thing that keep a lot of people broke. Your life is stagnant. You're experiencing the same thing year after year after year, and you're just not going anywhere. And literally that one thing is perseverance. Okay. Say it with me. Perseverance. I think I said that right. But to persevere. And when I realized that was the one thing that was holding me back, that was the one thing that was keeping my life stagnant, that was the one thing that was keeping me broke, honestly, is to persevere. I've been married for almost 10 years now, actually. Next year will be our 10-year anniversary. And I've always had this mentality where, I don't need this because I can lean on my husband. My husband got it. My husband, he's always stood on his own, honestly. He's always stood on his own. So I'm like, I don't need this job. My husband make a lot of money. I can go and, live off him, basically, which was so crazy. It's the most craziest thing ever. Okay. It really is. Because 2 incomes, 3 incomes, 4 incomes is always better than one. So when I realized that my inability to persevere was hurting me, I was like, oh no, I just got to fix this one thing and I can, my life would be much better. That's a no-brainer. Let's do it. But I realized that Even though I was like in my mind, I'm going to persevere, I still didn't know how to persevere, right? And here's the 4 things that I'm going to give you today that was going to help you to persevere. Because it's one thing to just be dealing with like deplorable conditions, like people treating you any kind of way, and you're like, no, I'm going to persevere, I'm going to persevere. But it's another thing to have a goal in mind to where when the opposition does come, you're able to persevere. So, number 1, it is hard for you to persevere when you do not have a vision. Right? So many times we get a job, and we get a job based off our bills, based off, proximity to our home, based off, the conditions, like, whether they work from home or whether they work in the office, the pay, we get a job just for that. And when hard times come within that job, it's hard for you to persevere because you don't have a real vision of being there. You just got the job because you need to pay some bills or you needed to survive. And that's not a big enough why. So you need to start with the vision. Start with the end in mind. What is your goal of being at that job? What is your exit plan? So when you fulfill that vision, you know that it is time to go. The second thing that's preventing you from persevering is you do not have a plan to fulfill that vision. God says that lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. When you start with that vision, you have to start creating a plan to fulfill that vision. Just for instance, for that job, you got that job, you have a vision of how you're going to get there. Now let's take some milestones. Let's make up some milestones of what it looks like, in between the time you start a job and you actually fulfilling your vision of being there. What are those steps to get there? Okay, you now have a vision of being there. You have your exit plan. You know what that looks like. Now it's putting together those steps to fulfill that vision. So okay, when this step is through, I know what to look for the next step and the next step and the next step in order to get there. And having your steps in mind will actually help you with the next reason why it's hard for you to persevere. The next reason is you did not plan for opposition. I don't know what it is about even like believers, because sometimes we kind of live in an oblivious world. Honestly, we just put our blinders on, like God gonna take care of it. If God be with me, who gonna be against me type thing. And we don't plan for opposition. And that is the most naive thing that we can do. You have to plan for opposition. Opposition is going to come. It's like a law, a universal law that opposition is going to come. Yeah, we could talk about physics, we could talk about science. Like, this is literally a universal law that opposition is going to come. So my good friend Paul, he said in Romans 7:21, he said, "So I find this law at work. Although I want to do good, evil is right there with me." So even when we set out to do good, evil is always going to be around. And I want the scripture said evil, but then we have to look at the context of what evil meant in that context. And people just think about evil as, Lucifer himself, or, something drastic happening. But no, opposition is just opposition. Anything that goes against what you're trying to do. Whether it's at the job, whether it's, coworkers talking about you, whether it's, you just going through a growing phase in your job where you continuously find yourself stressed, you're having a hard time, coping with stress. Those things are opposition. They're opposing what you're trying to do. So in order to persevere, you have to plan for opposition. Once you plan for opposition, you're good to go. Because guess what? You become on alert. You become aware of the opposition. So when it does come, you know that, okay, I have a plan for this. And it allows you to persevere because, first of all, you already started with your vision. You know why you're there. You know why you're at that job. And then you have a plan to fulfill that vision, and you plan for opposition so that when it does come, you're able to persevere. And lastly, but not least, you didn't start with God. It's simple as that. Sometimes we make these plans and we didn't start with God. Like, we didn't. We started the plans and then we included God after that, which is the worst thing that we can do, honestly. So we're still using the job situation. You got this job because you need to pay your bills. You got this job because it allowed you to work from home. You got this job because it was close to your house. You got this job because it allows you to get off, at 5 o'clock and go get your kids. Like, very, very surface level things of why you got the job. But you did not acknowledge God in the beginning. Say, God, you show me the workplace in which I belong in this point in time in my life. You give me the steps in order to, get this job that you have for me at this point. Like, don't think about the how. Just acknowledge God and He will direct your path. And again, you cannot persevere, or you're having a hard time persevering because you got this job just to pay your bills. Like, so when opposition comes, you're like, man, I don't know. Like, you talking about the job, you mad at everybody, you quiet quitting, basically. You going on vacations from the job, and like, even though your PTO got denied, like, you just doing all types of things because you really don't want to be there, and you really don't care for the job like that, because you didn't have a vision of being in the first place, and God didn't tell you to be there anyways. You put yourself there. So it's hard for you to persevere. So don't continue to allow lack of perseverance or your inability to persevere to keep you back. Like, don't be like the children of Israel. The children of Israel took a 40-day journey and turned into 40 years, and they still didn't reach the promised land, which is crazy, right? Because their inability to persevere prevented them from achieving what God had for them. It prevented them from living the life that God had for them, which is a life of abundance. And that is something that happens to us time and time and time again, because we are not able to persevere. So start with the end in mind, number one, okay? And then you're going to make a plan of how you're going to fulfill that vision. After that, you're going to plan for opposition, because opposition is going to come. And then lastly, but not least, start with God in mind, okay? That actually should have been number one. Start with God in mind. He will give you the vision. He will give you the steps. And then He will give you the boldness and the courage to stand up against opposition. So if you're wondering why your money is looking a little funny, if you're wondering why your life has not, improved, you're wondering why you're being stagnant, look at your ability to persevere. Take an examination of all the things, from today on back, and look at how you persevere. And I don't mean like, oh, you just finished. How did you finish? Did you finish complaining? Did you finish babbling? Did you finish, cursing people out? Did you finish, you barely made it? You was quiet quitting the whole time? Like, think about how you got through. Was it truly perseverance, or was it just, I'm just hanging on because, I got to pay bills, or, this is what I got to do right now. This is, this is all I got, think about that. And if you find yourself like, dang, I really didn't persevere like I was supposed to, and I'm experiencing the same thing again this year, the same thing again, year after year after year, I promise you, your solution is to persevere and to take those 4 steps that I just went over, and that will help you with your ability to persevere, and that will help you to propel your life, because God has so much more for you. But He cannot, and I promise you, children of Israel, He will not allow you to reach the destination that He has for you if your mind is not transformed. You got to build some tough skin. Build a tough skin, build you up as a spirit. You have to, in order to get to where you're going. So I hope that's blessed you. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, this is a discussion, and thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing week, and see you in the next video.